Hi guys, welcome back. This is Matt Chat, episode 373, featuring the final installment of my interview with Major David Wesely. This part of the interview, we talk about a lot of different things. We talk about tabletop role-playing versus computer role-playing. We talk about some shenanigans that went down between Brumley and Nintendo and David's company. We also talk about what it was like developing for the NES and how it compared to the ColecoVision, and much, much more. A lot of great stuff here, so without further ado, here is Major David Wesely. You know, somebody that's got so much experience with tabletop war games and role-playing games, as well as the video games, I'm kind of wondering, you know, some people talk about computer role-playing games, and we've got games like World of Warcraft now, where there's a lot of people there, you've got voice chat and all this kind of stuff. Do you think we're getting closer to that tabletop experience, or is this, do you just lose a fundamental thing when you go to a computer?
Well, no, I think you have different. It's not so much that you lose fundamental things. At one point, when the only way you could play a computer game was by yourself, there have been solo role-playing games in book form for a long time, almost as long as there's been role-playing games. I think it was just a couple of years after. In fact, since there were programmed learning texts in existence, I'm not sure, but I think there might have been some of those already set up before Dungeons & Dragons came out. And they had some elements of interactive fiction in them, right? Plan your own adventure or something like that. Choose your own adventure. Choose your own adventure, that was it. Now, no, those legally, the ones that I remember are ones that came out of TSR and therefore after Dungeons & Dragons, but I could believe that there may have been a few of those kinds of things floating around somewhere already. I think that when the movie Clue, where they have 3 different endings, and they tell you if you see it 3 times, or if you see the home version one, you have all 3 endings you can pick. It's kind of a fun idea, and somebody did a movie in the 1950s that was audience directed, and it would stop periodically when they were going to change reels, and they'd ask the audience to vote on, what, pick A or pick B, and then they'd put in the appropriate reel, and the story would go down a different track each time they did the movie. It was a fun idea, but tedious to stage, right? So all of these things are sort of role-playing game things. And that gave a lot of opportunities for people early on where you can't find opponents. You can do them, and they're fun. You can get involved in them. Now, they lose all the social interaction that's going on, which is a big part of all gaming. I mean, I came to understand as I got older and more mature that a major aspect of your gaming experience is the cross-table talk and interaction with the other players that's not really part of the game. It's an auxiliary action. And the same thing happens with bridge players or poker players. You get together to do X, but most of it is conversation over the top of the table. You think of The Odd Couple, Walter Matthau and Jack Lemmon, and they're having the big poker game, and there's all the other guys around the table that are there every week for the big poker game. And there's so many things going on besides the poker, right? So, no, I think we've achieved some of what you got in live face-to-face playing, and you have all sorts of computer moderation so that the computer can take care of being the dungeon master to some degree, handle all the arbitration and decisions and so on as to when you do X, does it work out well or not. It's still fairly crude on that level compared to having a live person making the calls. I don't know if anybody has set up any of these multiplayer computer networking games where somebody actually is the games master. I'm not familiar enough with all of them to say there's one out there that does that.
There's been some efforts to that end. I don't know how successful it's been.
Well, having a live GM in there who can enhance it with stuff that you've never seen before.
Tales of the Sword Coast, I think maybe is a game like that.
I haven't played it, so I'm not in the cutting edge of technology. I have a great collection of old computers at home. I have a Trash 80. and an Apple II, and an Atom, and
one that works too.
yeah, and a DOS 3.0, and a Windows 95, and a Windows 98, and a Windows 2000, and my Windows 7, which is presumably going to become ancient in the not too distant future. But you know, I accumulate computers and I never get rid of them because they still work okay, don't they? Well, mostly. Word processor still works just fine on my DOS 3.0 computer. You know, I'm just too much of a miser, I guess. But in at least a few cases, it's, and I have a Trash 80, so they're in good running condition with all the stuff, right? That's worth something now. Be worth more still later, but there we are. So, I think that a lot of the good social interaction aspects of the live play are lost when it's just you versus the computer. But because of the communications and the fact that you can do audio networking with people now, much of that is brought back. And it solves a lot of problems about people not living near each other. I mean, if I lived in Wallaby Station, Australia, and there's nobody that's not a blood relation of mine within 100 miles, and I'm the only teenager there is, I could think that I might find an ability to get onto a internet computer game with people all over Australia or all over the world. Be really cool. So,
I think that's a good stopping point.
Well, it's been fun.
Yeah.
It's been fun.
It's a pleasure.
Yeah. A lot of things happened to us in all those years with the video games. We developed stuff that didn't sell. We developed stuff that did sell. We were involved in a lot of the big stuff. But ultimately, after about the fourth time that we got burned by going onto a project with somebody who then went under. Well, really, the worst example was the last time we dealt with Eric Bromley. After his little problems with the Coleco Atom, he was kind of persona non grata there at Coleco. And he got in touch with us a couple of years later, and he said, well, you know, those idiots who screwed up all the production on the computers were to blame for all those problems. If it hadn't been for them making bad computers, we'd have made out just fine, right? And you didn't know how much he had to do with the bad marketing decisions, right? But he had a deal. He was going to do games for, now I'll get it right, David, Nintendo. Okay. He contacted us about a deal he'd put together when Nintendo wanted him to do a set of 10 games for the new Nintendo home system. And they were doing these, at least a couple of these were being done in conjunction with Matchbox, you know, little toy trucks and stuff, right? Sure. And they were going to have games that would feature the cute little Matchbox trucks in cross-country dirt rallies, and, you know, racing games. And they were going to have one called Big Rig, where you had the semi-tractors, identifiably different models from their line, and you were going to make deliveries all over the city with your semis and have to practice cornering and backing up and not running over little old ladies in the crosswalks, and, you know, and the concept things, lots of that, right? And it's a whole series of different possible games. And he had one that he'd started as a prototype to show them that he could do these video games. It was called Web World. It had to do with this spider that builds webs and fights off attacking scorpions and stuff. Okay. Okay, don't need the rational, proper biology student here that would rationalize about spiders and scorpions and who's the good guys and who's the bad guys. No, our brave little spider builds her web and defends the flowers from the evil things that would eat them. And now we'll make a nice happy line with this, right? So we're kind of with him on this, and we could do the programming, and he says, fine, so we sign up to work on games for him, right? We have a contract to do Web World. We have a contract to do Big Rig. No, we have a contract to do Web World, and we start doing studies on how to do Big Rig while he gets a contract ready for us. That's the level we're at. And he tells us he's going to give us this cool development system. Okay. Months go by. we finally get this kind of kludged together thing instead of a professional development system the way we had for Coleco. But yeah, you can kind of make it work, but it's just cobbled together by somebody someplace, right? And we're working on it, and we're working on WebWorld, and he continues to tell us how he's in conference with Nintendo, and they got this whole line of games, and based on, I know, our doing these first two, then we'll get some more of them, and it's going to make us a lot of money, and so on, right? And we're going along, and we learned our lessons sort of with him the first time we worked on it, because he talked us into working for royalties instead of working for hourly rates after we did Zaxxon. I was dead set against this, but unfortunately he found out that Dan was really the president of Ford Interactive Systems, got him off in the corner and convinced him we'd make vastly more money if we're working for royalties on that Zaxxon game. We'd have made all that fabulous money if it would work for royalties instead of hourly rates. So Nicholson fell for it, and we went for royalties instead of hourly rates. So all of our work for Coleco was on spec that eventually we'd get royalties, and of course we didn't, right? So this time we're demanding that we do get livable hourly rates plus royalties, you know. Less royalty, less blue sky, more Wheaties, okay. So we're working for them for quite a few months. Unfortunately, the feature creep continues. We're never going to get WebWorld finished because he keeps coming up with neat new shit that ought to be in there. You have these flying scorpions that shoot laser beams out of their eyes. And I keep mumbling, 50-foot penguins with electric green tentacles. And he's coming up with all kinds of new stuff to add to the existing game. It's never going to be finished as it keeps getting junk dumped on it. Little progress is being made on the one other title that we are working on, the Big Rig game, right? Or the Monster Truck Rally game. These are the two titles, actually, we've been exposed to. We haven't actually signed a contract for either one because we're kind of waiting to see if we can just get the first one done, right? Even though we're paid by the hour, so that technically if it takes 9,000 years to finish the stupid WebWorld game, we will only have wasted a lot of our lives working on it, right? But finally, his checks stopped coming. And we keep checking back with him. Oh, he checks in the mail, checks in the mail. And at last I turned to David McGarry, who had taken over as the president by then, because Dan had packed up and moved off to another career elsewhere. I said, we've got to talk about this. So we went off and we sat down, and I said, sometimes you're busy digging the ditch. You're so busy digging you don't notice which direction it's going in. And we laughed about that a little bit, and we agreed that things were not going well, that the symptoms were all there for this being a disaster. So McGarry got together all the records of everything we'd ever had for correspondence between us. And again, this is pre-internet. Right? So everything's been done on paper, and we've been throwing them all in a drawer. Now he gets them all out, he three-hole punches them, and he Xeroxes them and everything else. We've got this 3-ring binder full of all the things that he's ever said to us and we've ever said to him. Wow. And the check stubs and the invoices that have no payment received yet, and we're getting thousands of dollars behind on this. And we're not getting any answers on the phone anymore. And we know that the CES show in Las Vegas, he is supposed to be meeting with the Nintendo guys about the project and the games and stuff. And he's mentioned just accidentally once the name of the guy that he contacts at Nintendo. And we're not getting paid. So I said, well, how about I fly out to Las Vegas, I go to Nintendo, I say, hi, I've been working on these games for you, for Eric Bromley, and he isn't paying us. Would you like to take over paying us, and that will finish the games for you, right? That's the plan. And I take the magic 3-ring binder with me, and I fly out there, and I go to their booth, and they have this huge booth with a row of 10 computers with the names of the 10 new video games that Bromley's supposed to have for them to be shown off at that show over them. And all that's on one of them is a very out-of-date early revision of WebWorld. The other ones are all blank. And I said, I wanted to see Mr. So-and-so. He said, oh, he's back in the cafeteria. He's back in the dining room. And at the back of their booth, they actually had a room about this big for a lunchroom for everybody, or maybe a conference room, right? that is not visible to the public. You go around and get into it. So I walked in, there's a bunch of guys eating lunch, and I asked for him, and they said him, and he looked up at me, and he said, what did you want? I said, well, I'd like to talk to you about Eric Bromley, but I'm not sure I want to say the things I'm going to say about him in front of a lot of witnesses. And they all started laughing, and he said, I don't think you could possibly say anything about him we haven't already. So sit down. So I sat down and explained who I was. And then we started going through the 3-ring binder and my discussing our dealings and how Bromley's left us holding the bag and vanished. They told me that Bromley had been paid $10 million for the 10 games.
Wow.
That he had promised we'll all be ready for this show. That he had these guys in Minnesota who were working day and night on all 10 of them. But that all they'd ever gotten out of him was this partially completed web world game that they didn't even want. That he kept pushing at them and saying they kind of had to take as part of the deal. And that they had hit the convention without any of the new stuff they're supposed to have to show to anybody. And they were not happy with him, right? And that I said, how much did he pay you? And it went through all the stuff, and we'd gotten like $135,000 out of the $10 million had come to us. And they were understandably unimpressed, right? So then we finished talking for a couple of hours, and then the guy I'm talking to said, well, now you understand, I'll have to toggle this over with my associates here. Why don't you go away and come back here about 4 o'clock. I said, fine, it's the CES show. I got plenty of things to do. I'll wander around, look at the stuff. Sure. And I came back at 4 o'clock and he said, we are agreed that this was the smartest thing your company ever did. And I said, oh? He said, yes, because now we consider you to be co-plaintiffs instead of co-defendants. I was glad that since Nintendo knew where to get their hands on me and not on Eric Bromley, that I was a co-plaintiff. They never summoned me in to testify at the trial. Rumor is that Eric Bromley had been seen once at a consumer electronics show someplace along the line by somebody who recognized him, but we've never seen or heard of him again, right? But that was a blow, and that was really the final straw. I mean, we did that. We got burned one more time. Yeah. By that point, we had already decided, after the first, when Coleco went away and we needed to pay the bills, we started looking to go back to work for industry, because industry pays you every month or every 2 weeks, right there on the spot, real cash money, no pie in the sky, just get what you get right now, right? No royalties. And they pay real good. And we had a little problem in that of our company. Nicholson had impeccable credentials, but he wanted to keep running the company, not go out on contract all the time. And McGarry had a business degree, and I had a master's degree in energy physics, not computer science. And Maker had a library science degree. And a couple of the other guys we had were trade school people. They'd gone to Brown Technical Institute or something and become programmers, which doesn't cast a big shadow, right? So we had to do a lot of hard work to persuade companies to let us try out, right? In my case, it wasn't too bad because a master's degree just kind of sounds so cool if you don't mention that it's not in the right thing, right? But we got us in. We did a certain amount of cool bait and switch. There'd be a vacancy, and 2 of us would go up and interview for it. And then before they told me that they wanted me, I'd say, oh, I found another position, sorry guys, and they'd be left with the other guy who interviewed with me. Mm-hmm. But we all succeeded in persuading companies who went to work for that. Oh yeah, hell yeah, these guys are sharp. I had a funny thing with me on that. I went to work at Cardiac Pacemaker Incorporated. I'm going to be helping them develop a new desktop programmer unit, right? So I came into work the first day with a 2-wheeler cart with an IBM 386 and a monitor and a keyboard on it in a big box, right? I wheeled it in through the door. I got a personal property pass stuck on each one of them. I took it up to my cube, I set it up, I got it all wired up and ready, and I'm getting ready to start programming, and along comes the guy I'm working for, and he looked, he said, boy, that were quick, they got you a computer right away. And I said, well, no, that's my own computer, I brought it from home. You brought your own computer? And mine is a 386, which is the latest stuff, and they all had 286s, right? And I said, yeah, when you hire a violinist, he brings his own violin. And they just ate that shit up. They thought it was the best thing ever. They were renting a computer for free. It was wonderful, right? But it was a good experience. I mean, they got into medical products that way, and medical products is a real good industry to be in, let me tell you. And although we tried getting back together and working on the Aztec Empire Blood project later on, when that one dried up on us, that really settled it. And we stopped working on games. We had to pay the rent. We had acquired families and houses and other stuff in the meantime as we got older, and it just wasn't worth it to go out there and try to do the totally speculative, boom or bust game business. In many ways, the game business turned out to be like, well, two different industries. On one hand, it turned out like the motion picture industry. There's a movie called Nickelodeon, which is about the first decade of the 20th century when the movie industry is getting started. And all it takes is you got to pay for the cost of a camera and some film and get somebody to process it, and then you and your friends get together and make a one-reel comedy or Western or whatever you're trying to make in silent movies with low production standards, etc. And in 10 years, all you little startup companies are going to be dwarfed by people with real money moving in and setting up big studios. And in 10 years after that, you'll all be working for somebody else, unless you're the one lucky guy who managed to get the backing to make his little nothing operation into a big studio. And that's where we went. We went from 1978, 1 week of programming in BASIC and put it on a cassette and put it in the baggie, to
And that's all for this week's episode. Hope you guys enjoyed that. I should be back next week. I don't know if you noticed, I missed last week, actually. Things we're kind of getting into the very end of the semester here at St. Cloud State, so my time has been extremely limited. A lot of hectic stuff going on, kind of like crunch time, I guess, for you in the gaming world. But anyway, hopefully I'll be back next week. Haven't quite decided what I want to do yet. Maybe a review, maybe some kind of special episode, or I might just jump straight into Tim Lang's interview. Anyway, a lot of great stuff, and I really appreciate your help in keeping this show going. Remember, this is a show that's sponsored completely by the viewers. So if you like these interviews with people like Major Wesely, you know, you're probably not going to see those in too many other places. So if you want to keep these shows coming, please take a minute. Go to that link in the show notes to the Patreon site, or you can go to mattchat.us. Either way, all I ask for is $1 per episode, $1 per show to keep these coming. And let me tell you guys, I really, really, really appreciate your help. So if you've already done that, thank you very much. If you haven't, please take a minute to set that up. I think you'll like the show a lot better if you support it. So thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. All right, let's see. What about that news from the Matt Cave? Some pretty good news here. Let's see where to start. So, our old buddy Shane Stacks wrote in about this. This is a game from the Grimrock developers. It's called Druidstone, The Secret of the Menhir Forest. And it's not going to be anything like the Grimrock games, unfortunately, at least in my opinion. I really like those. This one is a top-down, turn-based, single-character, story-driven, procedurally generated fantasy RPG. So lots of terminology in that. But I saw one of the comments described it as a new version of fairy tale adventure. I thought that kind of intrigued me. I like that game back on the Amiga. Some of you guys might have played that before. Anyway, I don't know to what extent they're going for something like that, but this is definitely a far cry from those Grimrock games. So head over there, take a look at what they got on their website. Let me know what you think. Are you more excited about this than you would have been Grimrock 3, for example? Let me know. Just me personally, I would have been quite happy with just another Grimrock game. But I get it. They want to do something new, so fine. So Thamer wrote in about this, Mount and Blade 2. I always hear that as Mountain Blade, but it's Mount and Blade 2. And this is a really nice write-up about it. They got a lot of interview material here with the developers. And this one it looks like they're really crossing their T's and dotting all their I's with this one, really polishing the hell out of this. They're really working hard on it to make it absolutely right the first time. And I don't know about you, I really liked the Mountain Blade. Was it Warband, I think? One of my favorite games from recent years. And this one's, looks like it's set to be a much more ambitious and a better game than that one was. It's got a revamped political diplomatic system, better town management, better character development, and a crafting system. So that's really exciting stuff. So head over there, and thank you, Thamer, for sending that to me. And then finally, Matt wrote this in, but I actually had noticed it on my Kickstarter page. But Joe and Hannah have been updating their Copper Dreams Kickstarter. They've been quiet for a while, but now they're planning weekly updates on this, on their blog, I guess. And the alpha is due out next month sometime. Anyway, it looks like they've made amazing progress on this. And if you read the whole little update they posted there, there's some really interesting ideas for role-playing mechanics. I love this idea of disadvantages. So you could be a deaf character or a racist character. I'm not sure what that would be like. Also, you could have something like a stutter. So some pretty interesting ideas for role-playing mechanics. Might make it more realistic, or at least more interesting. And then finally, Stig wrote in about Frostpunk. This is a game coming out sometime later this year. It's called a society survival game, which is a mix of city building, survival, and society simulation. It's set in a frozen world driven by steam-powered technology, basically Minnesota. It's being developed by 11-Bit Studios, who did This War of Mine. So anyway, lots of great news there. Hope you will check all those out. Just look at the show notes for the relevant links. And thank you, Stig, for that one. All right, what about that ale of the week? All right, so this week I've got one from the Surly Brewing Company. These guys are out of Minneapolis. It's called Unbridled, and what really caught my eye was this fantastic label design on here. Got this sort of spooky, undead horse-looking creature on the cover. It's really pops. And it's 100% Brettanomyces fermented India Pale Ale. So I had no idea what this Brettanomyces was all about. Had to look it up. Apparently it means something like British fungus. And if I'm reading this correctly, it's a natural sort of wild fungus, or wild yeast, I guess, that a lot of brewers scrupulously try to avoid this and keep it out of their beer because it adds what I'd call a whang to their brew, right? But apparently there's a little movement out there, not only to not avoid it, but actually use it for 100% fermentation. So that's really interesting. And I can't say I've ever tasted Brett before. At least I'm not really sure what I'm getting myself into here. So what the heck? Why not try it? So anyway, let's get this Unbridled open and see what it's all about. So real quick before I get to the Unbridled, my friend Rob, a longtime friend of the show, actually sent me another little box, and it had some really cool stuff in there. Little gifts, I guess, from Matt Chat, and I wanted to share these with you. One is this Lands of Lore Throne of Chaos t-shirt, and that is just really fantastic. I'll definitely be wearing this on the next Matt Chat. And he also sent this Fantasy 3, The Wrath of Nicodemus. You know, the Fantasy series, I have to admit, it's not one I'm overly familiar with. I had a former colleague that was really into this series. He would rave about it. So anyway, maybe this would be the incentive I need to finally jump into the Fantasy series. Maybe that's what I can do for my next episode. So let me know, if for those fantasy fans out there, should I start with Fantasy 3, or maybe I should just start at the beginning? What are your thoughts on that? But Anyway, thanks to you very much, Rob. Much appreciated. Really, really cool. All right, so I got some of this Unbridled here in the rather excellent drinking horn. Woo! Oh, this one's definitely got an aroma coming off of this. You know, but it's not a funky aroma. It's actually just a... You know, I just can't tell you what that smells like. It's kind of a sweet, kind of an anise-like aroma, maybe. Not a... You can smell the hops in there, but there's definitely something unusual here, and I can only guess it must be the Brett, the British fungus I played there. Kind of a little bit of a... I don't know, have you ever played with little electronic toys, and sometimes the batteries and the wires, there's kind of a sort of aroma that comes off of that? It's kind of what this reminds me of. I don't want to say battery acid, but yeah, that's just really, really interesting. You know, I've never quite smelled anything like it. But anyway, let's give it a taste. Hopefully it won't kill me. Man, that is really different. Oh, man, what? Okay, this is going to take me a little while to process this. Yeah, definitely. You're not going to mistake this for an ordinary ale, let me tell you that. Let me try it again here. Yeah, I don't know. I've definitely tasted something like this before. So it's kind of, at first you feel like it's going to be like a Belgian ale, sort of citrusy and hoppy, but then this other flavor kicks in. I don't know how to describe it. I'm going to try one more time here. All right, so it's kind of smooth, it's kind of malty, it's kind of maybe a little bit of a peach and sort of real sharp, maybe a grapefruit flavor in there somewhere. It's actually quite pleasant. Let me try it one more time here. Yeah, it's really good. I don't know if I necessarily want to drink this for the rest of my life or anything, but it's definitely interesting, and I think distinctive is probably the word I'm looking for here. I'm kind of wondering if this Brett fungus is kind of like with cilantro. Some people love it. Some people feel like it tastes like dish soap. I'm not sure why people would want to avoid this flavor so much, but it's definitely different. I guess kind of a sort of a little sharp, citrusy, a little bit bitter, but definitely just really interesting. Anyway, I don't know quite how to rank this one, but I guess I'll go 5 out of 5 on it, just because it's really different and it's really interesting. And if you kind of like adventures in ale, I think you could do a lot worse than to try the Unbridled by Surly. So we'll go 5 out of 5 on it. And it's really tasty, really interesting, and I'm really happy with it. So 5 out of 5. All right, so let's wrap this up with a quotation. And I was looking for quotes by movie producers or movie studios, and I found one by Jack Warner of Warner Brothers. And he's got some really great quotes, but I thought this seemed the most appropriate one for today. It goes something like this: "I don't want it good. I want it Tuesday." See you guys next week.
Hey, Bud. Bud.
Huh?
Got a match?
Match? Yes, I have one right here.
Don't make a move. This is a stick-up.
What?
You heard me.
Mister, put down that gun.
Shut up. Now, come on. Your money or your life? Look, Bud. I said your money or your life. I'm thinking it over.